Hello there, and welcome back to Eunice. Eunice is the only company in the entire world that specializes in getting your life purpose right and your personal brand, or what we prefer to say, your personal style right, that supports that. Just to remind you, very simply, um, your personal style and your life purpose are like a ship. Your destination is where the ship is going. Your personal style is the way in which you are going to get there. What sort of music is being played, the style. Those things need to be complementary and are often regarded as distinct. So today is the second part of the summary of the book by Sonia Lyubomirsky, who summarized the How of Happiness. And what she said, and what we said in the first part, was that 50% of it is genetic. So there's not much you can do about that. 40% of it is down to what you can do, and 10% is down to circumstances. So, in celebration of what she said, because she's done a lot of science around this, I'm just going to ask you to take a moment, and I'll sit there here quietly, to write down what you think are the 12 things that scientifically will help you increase your happiness. And the reason for doing that is because there's a kind of little bit of common sense isn't common, in that you might write down things, and her scientific list may sound like it's common sense, but actually nailing those 12 things through science, that's not common sense. So just take a moment, and I'll be quiet for 30 seconds. Write down the things that you think contribute to lasting. Okay, thanks for taking that back. Well, there are a few things that really come up in our work, which we would like to share with you. So one of them is a great relationship, i.e., a great marriage. Well, scientifically, that helps you for about 2 years, but then you get into something called hedonic adjustment, which is really a fancy way of saying you get used to your partner, how good they are, how nice they are, and you can kind of take it for granted. The second thing is that there's this kind of idea that as you get older, there's this certainly this phrase in the United Kingdom called the grumpy old man. The implication being that if you're older, you're less happy. That's not scientifically true, in fact. The older you are, the happier you are. And then, the third thing is all around money, which we understand only too well. Countries report on their GDP, their gross domestic product, and there's an association between money and happiness. And that's true and not true. So let me be really clear about this. It is true that if you do not have your basics looked after, water, food, that you're in a situation where you're at war and so on, those things are not going to lead to your happiness. But what we know is that once you get beyond about 45 to 50,000 US dollars of income, which is a reasonable amount, but beyond that, you don't get any happier. So think of how many billionaires there are in the world and how many times that 50K could be shared. Just think about that for a moment. So there is this kind of ongoing addiction we have to stuff, and money does not bring happiness. So what does Sonia Lyubomirsky say does bring happiness? And the reason we're bringing this to your attention is obviously because of Eunice. Eunice is specializing in life purpose. Our duty is to go, well, does it help? Let's go through the things and then look how some of them link to purpose. Now, I can't remember them all off the top of my head. So you'll see my eyes going over to the left to remind me, but it's not like I'm being disrespectful to you. I just can't remember them all. So the first of them is about cultivating optimism. And that's actually about, that's a conscious effort. So number one, cultivating optimism is a conscious effort to actually think positively and to construct your life narrative in a way that's positive. And that's a lot easier to say than it is to do. The second is about practicing gratitude. Interestingly, as you'll see in the forward videos we're going to do about religion and happiness, the greatest sin in Hinduism is not practicing gratitude. So that gratitude is not just for the big things, but the little things. It's a Starbucks cup of coffee. It's a moment looking at a bee on a flower. It doesn't have to be huge or enormous, but it's about taking those little moments. So number one, practicing optimism. Number two is about practicing gratitude. Number three is about avoiding social comparison. Now, I would put my hands up and declare, I'd love to be clever. I'd love to be prettier. I'm these days a 5 out of 10 on a really good day for my age, And it's inevitable schools cultivate comparison, life cultivates comparison. What she's actually saying is compare yourself to yourself, not yourself to others. That's very hard to do in a world where we're constantly, even on day-to-day level, looking at other people's clothes, other people's cars, all this stuff. Doesn't help. So first is optimism, second is gratitude, third is social comparison, fourth is about really nurturing relationships. That's really easy to say, but what she's actually saying, Sonia is actually saying is, take relationships outside the family and take them to another level of intimacy, which for many cultures, Ukraine, Russia, being intimate with people and, being happy with people it's not a natural thing culturally. You're supposed to be kind of emotionless. So it's easy to say, but very hard to do. So moving on to the next one, acts of kindness. Sounds really obvious and easy, but it's not, is it? If you think about it, if you see a woman struggling on the other side of the street, you have to make a choice about whether you're going to go over and help them over the world, over the roads. Right? And so, love your family, love is easy. Love is like, of course you want to do it. Acts of kindness are about choice, and they're not necessarily big things, little things. Opening a door, letting someone in first, helping someone if they look confused, making those choices, acts of kindness. The next one is forgiveness. That is very, very easy to say, isn't it? But you can imagine if you're in a war-torn country and somebody kills your family, forgiveness is not easy. And it's not always easy on a day-to-day level, is it? Forgiveness, if someone has really wronged you financially or you feel that they've given you a sense of real injustice, that's not an easy thing to deal with. It can linger with people in divorce. It can linger with people in business relationships or they split up. So forgiveness is something that we have to cultivate. But the next one is coping with difficult situations, having strategies to do that. Having strategies to deal with having a lack of money. What do you do if you have a lack of money? How do you manage that? How do you deal with that? How do you, be mindful and try and take yourself away from the problem? Okay, so that is another one. The next one is kind of obvious, but not. It's about engaging in activities that you love and absorb you that actually relate to another one, which is, well, it's kind of the same, which is about being in flow. Now, again, that's really obvious, but isn't it much easier to turn on the television? That doesn't count. It's much easier to turn on the television than to go for a bicycle ride, than to go for a walk, than to do crocheting or learn a new skill. So again, sounds obvious, but few of us do it. The next one is celebrating the joys of life. So that's actually celebrating the really big things, the weddings, the things that are really good in your life. The next one is about goals. So having big goals that you realize and little goals that you realize gives you a sense of power and happiness. And the last two are about one, slightly more contentious. So engaging in religion at some level, in spirituality at some level, leads to happiness. And whether that's because it brings people closer together, it sort of reverberates through the other ones of giving you positive experience, gratitude, who knows? But scientifically, that is what it's about. And the last one is, again, kind of quite obvious because everybody these days talks about looking after your body and looking after your food. But looking after your body is actually a really important thing to do in terms of the science of happiness. So I'm going to summarize the list because there's 12 of them, and that's quite a lot of things. And it may just be that you decide on one simple thing to do every day that will help you. And we're going to sort of talk about that. And we'll come back to the thing of purpose, but let's do honor to Sonia's work first. So the first one is gratitude. The invitation here is to take 5 minutes a day just to say what you're thankful for. The next one is cultivating optimism. Next time you're feeling down or negative, try and reframe that as a learning. Take 1 or 2 minutes to kind of go, okay, I've been knocked back. What have I learned from it? Try and actively look at what the learning is. The third one is social comparison. How often do you find yourself on social media on your phone comparing yourself to others? I don't know, maybe you're lucky, but these days, most of us do compare. Take the time not to compare. Take the time to see it just as information, as interesting information, and go back to gratitude and optimism and celebrate where you are as opposed to other people. Nurturing relationships. Again, it sounds obvious, but most of us tend to focus just on our family. When we come home, we stop, how many of us actually consciously say,